Hare Krishna. Good. What is that? Oh, yes. Yeah, there's an art to this. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mr. Pad, Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitaclass, Ashtotar, Sri Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Bhagavadgitaclass, Ashtotar, Sri Srimad, Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 9th day of January 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary, by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in chapter 2 entitled Contents of the Gita Summarized, text number 40, page 107. Yeah, 240. Page 107 there. Christian Prabhu. Page 107. Should be pretty close. Okay. Neha bhikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate svapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahatom bhayat. Neha bhikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate svapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Neha bhikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate svapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. Damanakuma. Neha bhikkamanashosti pratyavayo navidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Go ahead, Marcy. Neha bhikkamanashosti pratyavayo navidyate svapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Tapas. Neha bhikkamanashoti pratyavayo navidyate svapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. Can I? Try it. Yeah. Neham bhikkamanashosti. Okay, not a problem. You need your glasses. You have to surrender to it. Go ahead, Christian. Neham bhikkamanashosti pratyavayo navidyate svapamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. All right, I'll read through the synonyms. No, there is not iha in this yoga, abhikrama, in endeavoring, nashaha, loss, asti, there is pratyavayaha, diminution, na, never vidyate, there is suopam, a little api, although asya, of this dharmasya, occupation, trayate, releases mahataha, from very great bhayat, danger. Okay. Translation, Krishna says to Arjuna, in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So this endeavor refers back to the previous verse, the Buddhi Yoga or Bhakti Yoga. Purport, activity in Krishna consciousness or acting for the benefit of Krishna without expectation of sense gratification is the highest transcendental quality of work. Even a small beginning of such activity finds no impediment, nor can that small beginning be lost at any stage. Any work begun on the material plane has to be completed, otherwise the whole attempt becomes a failure. But any work begun in Krishna consciousness has a permanent effect, even though not finished. The performer of such work is therefore not at a loss even if his work in Krishna consciousness is incomplete. 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there's no profit. Ajamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100% by the grace of the Lord. There is a nice verse in this connection in the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.5.17. Jakva, I'll say you say. Jakva swadharmam chadanam bhujang harer bhajan napakvo tapate tato yadi yaptrakva bhavadhrama bhuramushikim ko varta apto bhajatam swadharmataha. If someone gives up his occupational duties and works in Krishna consciousness and then falls down on account of not completing his work, what loss is there on his part? And what can one gain if one performs his material activities perfectly? Or as the Christians say, what profiteth a man if he gain the whole world, yet suffer the loss of his eternal soul? Material activities and their results end with the body. But work in Krishna consciousness carries a person again to Krishna consciousness even after the loss of the body. At least one is sure to have a chance in the next life of being born again as a human being, either in the family of a great cultured Brahmin or in a rich aristocratic family that will give one a further chance for elevation. That is the unique quality of work done in Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So this verse is much beloved by devotees of Krishna because it's very encouraging. Just a little bit of advancement on this path of Krishna consciousness, as Prabhupada would say in elder context, it assures you of a human life, which itself is a great treasure. And not only a human birth, but a human birth that will facilitate your continuing Krishna consciousness. And ultimately to success, which is purity. So Prabhupada makes the point, and he quotes this pertinent verse here, Tyakt Vasva Dharmam Chadanam Bhajanghare. Now this is in the context of Narada Muni preaching or instructing Vyasadeva in the need of writing the Srimad Bhagavatam. The whole idea is that he'd written all the other Shastra. He'd written the Mahabharata containing the Bhagavad Gita, he'd written the other Puranas, he'd written the Vedanta Sutra, and the Upanishads and the Vedas. So all of that was done, but he still felt unsatisfied. He felt something was missing. And he suspected himself it was because he hadn't sufficiently glorified pure devotional service and the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his different incarnations. He had mentioned those. He had written the Bhagavad Gita, but the emphasis had been in other shastras, especially Karma Kanda section of the Vedas, which is all about different sacrifices to different gods and goddesses for material elevation. So. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to bring one to the point of devotional service, and even if you fail, that's the whole point of this verse, that Tyakt Vasva Dharmam Chadanam, if one gives up his Swadharma. Now this is very interesting because in a few verses back, Krishna was encouraging Arjuna to perform his Swadharma. He says if you give up your Swadharma for material reasons, which is what Arjuna was wanting to do. Swadharma means that activity which most complements your psychophysical nature. The Kshatriyas are said to be in the mode of passion, Brahmins in the mode of goodness, the Vaishyas in the mode of passion and ignorance, and the Shudras in the mode of ignorance. Well, the Shudras also have activities that they perform that complement their nature and that move them forward in the path, so that they can maybe next birth take a higher birth. But of course, in Krishna consciousness, all bets are off. From any platform, even outside of the Varnashram, lower than Shudra, one can be elevated to the highest. So that's the point of this verse. You give up your duty in your material duty, swadharma, but you take to the worship of Krishna. Here it says, Chadanam Bhajanghare, you worship the lotus feet of Hari. But Bhajan apakvo. Now this is an interesting word. We know the word swapacha. Have you heard swapacha? Dog cookers. And it's understood if you cook them, you're going to eat them. So the swapacha means the dog eaters. They're supposed to be the lowest of the low in Vedic culture. Although it's interesting because the cow eaters are worse than the dog eaters. But it's so far out of the Vedic culture that's not even considered civilization or human life. Anyway, so here the word pachaha means to cook. So the apakva means it's not cooked. In other words, immature. Your devotion is not completed. It's apakva, and you fall away from the path. So you've given up your material engagements, and you joined the Hare Krishnas, and then you fell away. Oh, now my life is ruined, Some devotees, some people think that. Oh, I worked so hard in Hare Krishnas, and now I don't have any career and this and that. But actually, they're very fortunate because they have assets in devotional life. It's just like a bank account that you put money in, and ultimately you have enough to buy your way back to Godhead. It's kind of a crude example, but that's really what it is. And it's never, there's never any bank failure. There's no inflation. Whatever you put in there, that's your eternal asset. So that's the point of this verse. The second half of the verse is Yatra kwa, but where is there any Bhadra? Here it says it's all auspicious for practicing Krishna. But where is there any auspicious activity if one simply follows his swadharma? The last word in the verse there, but it's abhajatam. There's no worship of Krishna. You're doing your material duties very nicely. Even you're performing material sacrifices, going up to heaven. You know, that's also part of it in the Vedic culture. But you don't take step number one in Krishna consciousness. It all comes to zero ultimately. Krishna describes it graphically in the 9th chapter. Those who worship me, we all have books so you can turn to it. 9, let's see, where is that? Yeah, 20 and 21. 20 and 21. Try Vidyamam. Those who know the 3 Vedas, this is mentioning especially the Karmakanda section. They worship me indirectly. Somapad, drink the soma juice. They become purified of their sins. And they're practicing sacrifice, but their desire, Ishtva, is Svargatim, to go to heaven. You see? That's what they want to do. And if they do it right, Punyam, those pious people, they approach these Indraloka, the heavenly planets of Indra, and Ashnanti Divyan Divideva Bhogan. They enjoy godly delights. They're eating, they're consuming. And then he describes the second verse, 21. Tetam Bhukva Swargalokam Vishalam. They enjoy, Vishalam means very broad and wide and deep, enjoyment for a long time. But Chine Punya. Eventually the Punya credits are used up. It's material. It's like, it's really material. So it becomes exhausted, and Martya Lokam Vishanti. He doesn't mince words. Every word counts here. They only have a few minutes to speak. Martya Lokam Vishanti. You come back to the world of death. And therefore, Trahi Dharmam. The Trahi refers to the 3 Vedas, not, the material. Anupapunna Gatagatam, going and coming, going and coming, going and coming. It's the Ferris wheel. Prabhupada didn't know exactly the meaning of it, but he described it. We've seen it. They have it down here. You go up, we're going up. Oh no, we're going down. Up and down, up and down. You're not making progress, you see. Karma. And then on the other hand, Krishna says, Ananyaschintiyanto mam. Those who are one-pointed in their attention to me, they're fully Krishna conscious. They worship me, payupasate. Nitya abhayuktanam, always linked to me in devotional service. Yogakshemam vahamyaham. This phrase, yogakshemam, we should learn. We can learn it tonight. Okay? It's a really important phrase. It keeps coming up again and again. Yoga here has nothing to do with yoga, with practicing yoga. It means those things you need to connect to in order to live in this world. Your necessities. Food, shelter, companionship, whatever. In other words, what you need. And kshema, security, safety, protection. Those 2 things, you can survive in this world. You get enough to eat, you get enough clothes on your back, you stay warm. This is yoga. And kshema means you're secure. Without the security, it doesn't work. If somebody's attacking you or whatever. So those 2 things, I personally carry those. Krishna says. So and in the end, you come back to me. The point is, if you're really thinking about me, you get beyond all of this coming and going and threatening and dying, and you go back to the eternal life of bliss and knowledge. So what's the better investment? We got to invest. We're all investors, not just our money. We're investing our time, our energy, our attention, our faith. So the best investment is Krishna consciousness. If we have faith in Krishna, we'll be convinced. So this verse is very encouraging because it means that just start it. Just to get a little assets, In other words, start on the path. And then mahato bayat. So mahato, this word bayat generally means fear, but in this case it means that which you fear, danger. So I like to say this is the most fearful type of danger. What is the most fearful danger, Bhakta Zach? Yeah. To lose this precious human form of life and go down again in the species where it's all darkness, you can't practice Krishna consciousness. So, congratulations. Just by coming to one of these classes, chanting a little Hare Krishna, you were suopam. This suopam becomes svopam by the Sandhi rule. So it means very little. You know, so you've all done more than a very little. Dr. Frankie's done more than a very little. He used to live here. Have a seat, Prabhu. Take up a book. Take a book here, right here. There's your book right there. You can sit on the floor if you want. We're on page 107, text 40. So this is a very, now Prabhupada refers to a Jamil. Jamil, it's always worth reiterating his story, because the whole thing of the Jamil, it keys on the holy name, you know. The context of the Jamil story is that the beginning of the 6th canto, naturally it's right after the end of the 5th canto. On the end of the 5th canto, Shukadev was describing to Pariksit all of the hells, the horrible hells. I remember working on those chapters. Those were one of the few chapters I actually got to work on in 1975, when we put out the 17 books in 2 months marathon. Legendary. So somehow I was, you know, in the right place at the right time. So, you know, middle of the night. I mean, there was no schedule. It was serious. The books had to be put out in 2 months, 17 books in 2 months, which is impossible. But, you know, we tried to do it anyway. So there I am, you know, working on these hells. You know, if you have illicit sex, if a Brahmin, especially a Brahmin, has illicit sex, then after death he's made to embrace a figure, a red iron hot form of a woman, you know, and force him. It's hair raising. So at the end of those chapters, we're on page 107. Actually, on page 108 there, Frankie. You can't forget it. 108 in your hymnal there. And so at the end of that canto, with those descriptions of the hellish planets, naturally soft-hearted Pariksit, who's listening to all this, he's about halfway through, or maybe a third of the way through, of his 7-day fast. No eating, no sleeping, no drinking, just hearing. We got it there? Okay. So Pariksit is saying, well, how can they be saved? How can people be saved from this horrible punishment? He's a compassionate Vaishnava, and he's so purified. So Shukadev Goswami tests him. First he describes material prayaschitta. You can atone for sin. Through austerities, penances, mantras, this and that. So he describes that in a few verses. But Maharaj Pariksit says, no, that doesn't sound good, because even though one may atone for the sin and not have to suffer the horrible reactions right away, you don't really uproot the desire to perform the sin again. And so the process is not, efficacious, because there's always the danger you're going to perform it again, and we can see that everywhere. You know, just think of people trying to give up alcohol or drugs, right? So okay, you know, they get dragged off by their friend or their relative to rehab. Means they're in a controlled environment. There's no drugs involved. There's no triggers. There's nothing, and there's all kinds of good association giving you the strength to give it up. And so at a certain point, you get clean, right? And you're sober, and you try to get get your life together, and you feel good about yourself. But you go out there again into the real world, and you get in the wrong association, like a bar, you're finished. Right? It's too much. Just one drink. One drink. How can one drink? Half an hour later, you're on the floor. And even you fell off the wagon, isn't it? You fell off the wagon. So that's exactly what's described in the 6th canto. And the analogy is given, the kundura shochavat. You know that phrase? The elephant's bathing. The elephant gets all dusty and dirty and in the forest and everything, and he goes into the lake, to get clean. He has a good time bathing there, and even with his trunk, he can take a nice shower, right? And he comes out, but where's the towel? Where's the gamsha to dry off? What is it? He rolls in the sand, in the dirt. So he got all clean, but then he got dirty, he relapsed, you see? So then the story of a Jamil is told. And the whole point is how the process of bhakti, centering on the chanting of the holy name, gives you the higher taste. We're coming up in a few verses, next week, or week after, 259, which is another key verse. You know this one, Frankie? Yes, you do. Maybe not by heart, but you've heard it before. One can refrain from the objects of the senses and not consume them, but you don't uproot the desire, rasa varjam. The rasa, the taste is still there, but seeing the Lord, getting direct experience, then even the taste goes. That's real vairagya. And that's what we're after. Vairagya has to be there. Knowledge, vairagya, and getting the higher taste. So Prabhupada refers to a Jamil, and he says, in this context, a Jamil performed his duty in some percentage of Krishna consciousness, but the result he enjoyed at the end was 100%. So his duty in Krishna consciousness was to chant the name Narayan when he was dying. That was his duty. He wasn't even a bhakta. He had fallen from Brahminical culture. He was, a sinner all his life. But he had the presence of mind due to his upbringing to name his children after God, names of God. So his youngest child, he's 80 years old. He has a little child, so you can see he's not very self-controlled. So his name was Narayan. So even before he died, of course, he's calling him all the time. And as soon as you chant the name Narayan or Krishna even once, even if you're not referring to Krishna, the name is so powerful, you get expiation from so many sins. You may not realize it. So he chanted that famously, the Yamadutas coming, these frightening figures. There's something called terminal restlessness. You ask any nurse who deals with the dying, and they'll tell you, yeah, Mr. Jones was experiencing terminal restlessness. He was thinking there's dogs in the room, and he was seeing these creatures. We gave him a sedative. They just down you out, so so they don't have to deal with it. But they're coming. They're coming for you. So anyway, he saw them coming, the Yamadutas, ready to rip him out of his body and take him to Yamaraj for judgment, because he'd been nasty all his life. But he was so frightened, and he was frightened for his son, little boy playing maybe near the bed or whatever, that he chanted, Narayan! When Prabhupada, they read this chapter to Prabhupada, even before it was printed. Prabhupada wanted to give lectures on this, and the book hadn't been printed, so they had the manuscript. So at first it said, Narayan, Narayan, 3 times. So Prabhupada stopped and says, it said 3 times there? This is not 3 times. Once is sufficient. One chant. If we can just chant Krishna's name once, and when we're leaving our body, life is successful. Now, what happened with Narayan, with Jamil, and it's very instructive, he didn't immediately go back to Godhead. What happened was, famously, the Vishnu Dutas immediately came, to stop. They can stop the Yamadutas. No, we can't stop them, but they can stop. So then there was this discussion between the Yamadutas and the Vishnu Dutas, and Jamil, he listened to that on his deathbed. And so it was all about, it was the Vishnu Dutas more or less shined off the Yamadutas. He said, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what real Dharma is, Because they thought they were serving the Supreme Lord. As far as they knew, Yamaraj was it. He had always been supreme in judgment, and they brought him to, but now suddenly what seems like an open and shut case, Jamil was so sinful his whole life, was being stopped by these Vishnu Dutas. So the Yamadutas all went back to Yamaraj, kind of discouraged, said, well, what's going on? We thought you were the supreme in this world in terms of judging the sinful and non-sinful. And so Yamaraj has this wonderful soliloquy, if you will, about the holy name in the 6th canto. And we won't go into it now because it's a little far afield. But the upshot is that Jamil got a second chance. That's why we called that book Second Chance, is a book, And the second chance, he made good on it. He didn't die. And he took sannyas, basically, went to the Himalayas, went to the ashram, and kept chanting. So that's what Prabhupada said. He did some percentage of Krishna consciousness, which was chanting one name of Narayan, and then the result he enjoyed at the end was 100%, because he was purified. So he didn't have to take birth again. But if he had died then, he wouldn't have been taken to hell. He would have appeared in the Bodhi family, because he chanted Narayan. So this is all very encouraging for us. But at the same time, Prabhupada said, when these points come up, but we should try to complete the course in this lifetime. Because if you don't go back, you're sure to end up in that womb again. Maybe it's a human womb, but you wake up. You wake up after 6.5 months. Prabhupada always said 10 months. I said, well, 10 and 9 is close. But he was talking of lunar months. Lunar months were a little shorter, right? 28. So you figure it out. The 10 lunar months are 9 solar months. So after 6.5 of the normal solar months, you wake up in there. You know, you can't do much. I mean, you can kick and move a little bit, but you're awake. And it's described in the Bhagavatam, in the third canto, about the prayers, how you're praying. Now there it says that the fortunate soul, will pray. Basically, you're praying, oh, I'm really sorry I didn't go to Mangal Artik, from now on. I mean, that's really what the prayers, you read those prayers, and he's very regretful. But the scene in the Bhagavatam is that it seems to be every soul wakes up like that. Because the soul that is praying like that then comes out into a materialistic family. And you forget everything by the trauma of birth. And you're completely helpless. However, whatever family you're in, they're going to train you one way or another. And so it's described in the third canto as, materialistic family, and you're again conditioned. But if one has some assets, even a little assets in Krishna consciousness, you'll be born to be able to continue that bhakti. And if you're somewhat along, you'll get born in a devotee family, which is the best birth of all. So that's why this verse is so encouraging. And okay, let's go on. Unless there's any discussion. Okay. Do we have that mic just in case someone has a question? Can you activate it? The wireless. Is it somewhere? All right, next verse, very important. Prabhupada, obviously, you see in the purport how this verse was very important for Prabhupada. Vyavasayatmaka buddhir ekeha kurunandana bahushaka hinantascha buddhayo vyavasayinam. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose. This is the path of Krishna consciousness. Those who are on this path are resolute in purpose, and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many-branched. Purport. A strong faith that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is called Vyavasayatmaka intelligence. The Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya 2262 states, and this is the definition of Shraddha. Shraddha shabde vishwas kohe sudridha nishchoy Krishna bhakti koile sarva karma krita hoy. This is Bengali. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime. When one is engaged in the duties of Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family traditions, humanity, or nationality. So I'll just tell you right now that in this particular passage, the definition of this, of the explanation of this verse begins before the verse is quoted. Faith means that a strong faith, a strong conviction that by Krishna consciousness one will be elevated to the highest perfection of life is more or less a translation of this. Shraddha Shabde Vishwas. Vishwas is this conviction. Sudridha Nishchoy. Absolutely. Sudridha means very, very firm conviction that what? Krishna Bhakti. By practicing Krishna Bhakti. Korle will come into being. Sarva Karma Kritahoy. All of the activities will be achieved. In other words, I don't have to do anything else but act in Krishna consciousness. Now, keeping body and soul together and doing what you need to do, that can also be done in a Krishna conscious way. That has to be done. Otherwise, that's a deviation. That's going to bring you back again. So this is an advanced platform. It's equivalent to Nishta. When you start, this ladder from Shraddha to Prema. We should know this if you're interested in really moving forward in bhakti. Adhau Shraddha. But Prabhupada explains in various places, that's not the Shraddha mentioned here. That a beginning Shraddha is more or less interest, respect. Think of it as someone who just comes to the temple for the first time. That's the beginning. Adham is the beginning. Shraddha, some interest, some respect to hear, to associate. And then the next what happens is sadhu sangha. You associate with devotees. Now, today there's so many media. Through the books is so important. You're associating with Prabhupada, obviously, and so many with Krishna. We should always remember Krishna is here. He's absolute in the sound. When we chant those mantras or read the English even, it's still Krishna's, present there. So that's very important. Sangha, sadhu sangha, the most important sangha. But generally, you come together and you get inspired to do bhajan, bhajana kriya, which basically means chanting Hare Krishna.
And then a bhajana kriya at a certain point, you can't get around it, at a certain point should fructify into initiation. And then you get firmly convinced. It's all a question of your determination. Because we've been so practiced to acting very, determinedly for sense gratification. That has to be redirected. So then there's the process of anartha nivritti. Means clearing away all unwanted things in your heart, material desires and fears and trepidations and all of these things. And that period can take as long as we want. It's a question of how determined we are. But if we're determined and serious, then we come to the point of nishtha. Nishtha means firm conviction. That's the shraddha we describe here. That's what we just read in this purport. The firm conviction that Krishna is God, I'm His eternal servant, bhakti is the way to know Him, and all of these acharyas and these books are my shelter, and this is where I'm going to put my intelligence, and you're actually doing it, and you have no doubts. That's nishtha. Now, along with the nishtha, then the next step, you know what the next step is? Ruchi. It's not that in the lower plate you don't have any ruchi, otherwise how would we move along? From day one you can get ruchi, some taste. But everything becomes more and more tasty. In other words, as we're reading every Monday in the Nectar of Instruction, and we're just on this all-important verse, Syat Krishna Nama Chaditadi Sitapya Vidyapito Patapta, that the holy name, form, qualities of Krishna are by nature very sweet and tasty. But due to our conditioning, and he gives the example, the bile of ignorance, meaning hepatitis, So serious hepatitis, I once had it. Everything sweet doesn't taste sweet anymore. It tastes bitter, So the holy name, we don't have any interest, But if you chant, you become purified. Then we get the ability to taste more and more, and that's good, That's the greatest blessing. That's coming directly from Krishna. To have a desire to chant and be, and with that desire, all of these material desires go off. So that's the ruchi continues, and that matures. It's almost like stirring a big pot of sugar water, so it's getting thicker and thicker into syrup, into candy. That's described like that. And then comes asakti, real attachment or attraction for Krishna, and that matures into bhava and prema. So it starts with the preliminary faith, and then that nishtha is the faith he's describing here, and that's the vyavasayamaka buddhi. So, I just want to explain that. Faith means unflinching trust in something sublime in the process of Krishna. When one is engaged in duties in Krishna consciousness, he need not act in relationship to the material world with obligations to family, tradition, humanity, or nationality. Fruit of activities are the engagements of one's reactions from past good or bad deeds. When one is awake in Krishna consciousness, he need no longer endeavor for good results in his activities. When one is situated in Krishna consciousness, all activities are on the absolute plane, for they are no longer subject to dualities like good and bad. The highest perfection of Krishna consciousness is renunciation of the material conception of life. This state is automatically achieved by progressive Krishna consciousness. The resolute purpose of a person in Krishna consciousness is based on knowledge. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. Who recognizes that line? Go ahead, the whole verse. Bahunam. All right. After many, many births and deaths, one who really has knowledge surrenders unto me, understanding that Vasudeva is everything. Such a Mahatma is very rare, so Prabhupada is quoting this very important verse. A person in Krishna consciousness is the rare good soul who knows perfectly that Vasudeva, or Krishna, is the root of all manifested causes. As by watering the root of a tree, one automatically distributes water to the leaves and branches, so by acting in Krishna consciousness, one can render the highest service to everyone, namely the self, the family, society, country, humanity, etc. If Krishna is satisfied by one's actions, then everyone is satisfied. Now, here comes the essence of this, why this verse is so important to Prabhupada. Service in Krishna consciousness is, however, best practiced under the able guidance of a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Krishna, who knows the nature of the student and who can guide him to act in Krishna consciousness. As such, to be well versed in Krishna consciousness, one has to act firmly and obey the representative of Krishna, and one should accept the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master as one's mission in life. And this is what Prabhupada did. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur instructs us in his famous prayers for the spiritual master as follows. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado yasya prasada nagati kutopi dhyayan stuvangtasya yashas trisandhyam vande guroshi charanarvindam. By satisfaction of the spiritual master, the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes satisfied, and by not satisfying the spiritual master, there is no chance of being promoted to the plane of Krishna consciousness. I should therefore meditate and pray for his mercy 3 times a day, and offer my respectful obeisance unto him, my spiritual master. The whole process, however, depends on perfect knowledge of the soul beyond the conception of the body. Not theoretically, but practically, when there is no longer a chance for sense gratification manifested in fruitive activities. One who is not firmly fixed in mind is diverted by various types of fruitive acts. So this vyavasayatmaka buddhi, we can go back again to the nectar of instruction. What are those 6 elements that further devotion? Utsahan, yat, tat karma bhavartanat, sangat tyagat sato vrite shadvi bhakti prasidyati. So, utsahan is enthusiasm. Nishchayat is determination. Dharyat is patience. And tattat karma bhavartanat are all the different things that we should do and not do in order to progress in devotional service. So, sometimes we're not enthusiastic. We're enthusiastic to roll over and take another hour or 2 of sleep rather than go to Mangalarti. So that becomes a challenge, right? And that's an advantage of the ashram, getting the peer pressure. But regardless, eventually you have to decide what are you going to do, And so what's happening there? On one side you have the whole parampara, the Bhagavad Gita, your higher intelligence, and then the other side you have your mind, your senses, and your habitual activities that you're doing. So with your intelligence, you have to conquer over the lower self. We'll learn that at the end of the third chapter. That you have to strengthen the intelligence by sufficient hearing from the right source. Like Prabhupada's books in association of devotees. That's the whole Bhakti Chakra thing, right? You sit around and read, which is great. And by strengthening that intelligence, you get the determination to do the right thing or refrain from doing the wrong thing. They're 2 sides of the same coin. And so, when you actually do that, then you strengthen your will. This is vyavasaya, this one-pointed intelligence, determination to act. Ekeha means one-pointed. Is key. Otherwise, the intelligence, the activities go all over the place. Bahushaka, unlimited branches of things you can get into and do and become enthusiastic about and then give it up. And lifetime after lifetime. But if you really want to go back to Godhead, you have to be that one-pointed. That's why it is said, Uttista jagata prabhavadan navodata churasiddhara. I forget the rest of the Sanskrit. But it says, get up, wake up. Uttista jagata, and understand the great treasure you have as a human being. Prabhavadan means a great benediction. But then you have to follow, and the path is straight as the gate. It's razor's edge. It gives that churasiddhara. Because, it's not easy getting back to God. And we've been mucking around in this material world for millions and millions of births. We have all these bad habits, conditioning, But the advantage we have is the instruction and the example of the great souls, the holy name, Lord Chaitanya's mercy. It's all waiting for us. We just have to take that step. We have to be determined to get the mercy, And that's why, hearing about the material world from the Shastra and so is so important. Because that's an impetus. My little analogy or metaphor of what moves you forward. There's two main, motivations in this world. Desire, kama and bhaya, desire to enjoy and fear of a million different things. Okay, so we can use those. And what the fear of birth, old age, disease, and death. Now this is what motivates the impersonalists. They're not bhaktas. They're averse to serving Krishna. But they really want to get out of the birth, death, old age, and disease and the threefold miseries. They're intelligent enough to see that. But their response to it falls short. Because they try to negate personality entirely. Thinking that senses, per se, means bondage, you know. But no, there's something called spiritual senses by which you help you to get out of material bondage. They help you to connect to Krishna. So they're mistaken. But bhaktas also use that. I mean, Krishna says right in the Gita in chapter 13, text 8 to 11, forget which verse it is, maybe 8, 9 maybe. Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshana darshanam. One should be very sober and see, you know, the evils of birth, old age, disease, and death. For me, I don't want that, you know. So that there's that element. That's the Durga with her trident in the back, the threefold miseries, pushing you forward. Hey, get going. But then the bhaktas have the advantage in front of Krishna's inviting you. Attraction. So there's repulsion on the backside and there's attraction on the front side. But you have to be conscious of it. Otherwise you get attracted over here. All the material sense gratification is just different ways of trying to forget birth, old age, disease, and death. It's just a lot of intoxication, really. It covers your knowledge. Remember, again, the end of chapter 3. This enemy in the form of lust, avritam jnanametina. Avrita means covers your knowledge. Avritam means jnanino of the inherently knowledgeable living being. Here is called the jnanina, the knower. That's us. Nitya vaidina, eternal enemy. Why is it eternal? Because it's got its root in prema. Prabhupada says right in the purports that prema, when it becomes curdled, if you will, by contact with the modes of nature, turns into kama. And it's very powerful. That material desire, when it gets hold of you, you know, you can't stop it. It overwhelms your intelligence. Especially when it turns into anger. Kama esha, krodha esha. You know? This is your enemy, Arjuna, not all those soldiers on the other side. Your enemy is in here. And Prahlad says the same thing. You know, one who hasn't conquered his own mind hasn't really conquered anything, because you're living with the worst enemy. That's in the 6th chapter. The mind can be the best friend or the worst enemy. The mind that's fixed on Krishna is your best friend, and the mind that's all over the place is your worst enemy. You're living with it. Drag you here, drag you there. So we have the greatest tool, you know, the means of controlling that mind. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, you still have some work to do. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare. Again and again and again and again. Just hear it. Chant and hear. What could be simpler? So this verse is key. We have to come to that point of vyavasayatmaka, you know, and in the next verse he'll describe, you know, Arjuna, he's all over the place. He's referring to this Veda, that Veda, trying to justify his leaving the battlefield. That comes up in the next verse. Hare Krishna. Boy, I'm sorry. We lost our... Okay, we have 3 minutes. We'll pick up on 42 on Monday. I queued it up here, so it should come right up. Okay, so we're in the Krishna book. And Krishna has just taken birth, and Vasudeva is offering prayers. You are Shuklam. Shuklam means whiteness. And Shuklam is the symbolic representation of the absolute truth because it is unaffected by the material qualities. Brahma is called Rakta, or red, because he represents the quality of passion for creation. Darkness is entrusted to Lord Shiva because he annihilates the cosmos. The creation, annihilation, and maintenance of this cosmic manifestation are conducted by your potencies. So he's speaking directly to Krishna, who's appeared as a little child in the form of Vishnu with 4 hands. Yet you are always unaffected. You are always unaffected by those qualities, as confirmed in the Vedas. Harir hi nirguna sakshat. The Supreme Personality of God, it is always free from all material qualities. Close quote. It is also said that the qualities of passion and ignorance are non-existent in the person of the Lord. My Lord, said Vasudeva, you are the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead, the supreme great, maintaining the order of this cosmic manifestation. Yet in spite of your being the supreme controller, you have so kindly appeared in my home. The purpose of your appearance is to kill the followers of the demoniac rulers of the world, who are in the dress of royal princes, but who are actually demons. I'm sure that you'll kill all of them and their followers and soldiers. I understand that you've appeared to kill, in order to kill the uncivilized Kamsa and his followers. But knowing that you were to appear in order to kill him and his followers, he has already killed so many of your predecessors, your elder brothers. Now he's simply awaiting the news of your birth. As soon as he hears about it, he will immediately appear with all kinds of weapons to kill you. So in the end, he's afraid for Krishna. You know, he's forgotten that he's the master and the all-powerful Lord. This is the Yogamaya. Please do something, you know, to protect yourself. After this prayer, Vasudeva, Devaki, the mother of Krishna, offered her prayers. She was very frightened because of her brother's atrocities. Devaki said, "My dear Lord, your eternal forms like Narayan, Rama, Hayashirsha, Varaha, the Shringa, Vamana, Baladev, and millions of similar incarnations emanating from Vishnu are described in the Vedic literature as original. You are original because all your forms as incarnations are outside this material creation. Your form was existing before this cosmic manifestation was created. Your forms are eternal and all-pervading. They are self-effulgent, changeless, uncontaminated by material qualities. Such eternal forms are ever cognizant and full of bliss. They're situated in transcendental goodness and are always engaged in different pastimes. You're not limited to a particular form. All such transcendental eternal forms are self-sufficient. I can understand that you are the Supreme Lord, Vishnu." Okay, so we'll begin there on Monday. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. And thank you for coming and listening. Okay. Vyavasayatmaka buddhi. Here, Master. Haribol.
Shri Gaura ki jai. Krishna Chaitanya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Divine grace. ISKCON BBT founder Church Dravida Prabhu Jai. Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Dravida Church Ashtotar Shri Srimad Divine Grace. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnava ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Prem Chikho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Bhagavan Nityananda Shri Advaita Kedadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shashan Varakun Giri Gopalan ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham ki Jai. Navadik Mayapur Dham ki Jai. Jagannath Purida ki jai, Jagannath Swami ki jai, Ganga Mahi ki jai, Yamuna Mahi ki jai, Tulsi Dev ki jai, Bhakti Dev ki jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Transcendental Books Tradition ki jai, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glory to the Son of the Lord. All glory to the Son of the Lord. All glory to the Son of the Lord. All glory to Guru and Gauranga. Anybody need the words? Very good. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste
Then Hare Krishna.
Be happy.
Be happy.
Take prasad.
Have prasad.
No prasad. Be happy, no prasad.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. Hare Hare Bol. Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. Hare Hare Krishna.
You know you're still gonna kind of end of the weekend. The second week is first. I'll be like, you're like, oh, Broadway, I'll be like, but yeah,
You guys waiting for me? You want them? Come on, Frank.
I took just now.
Oh, you already had some?
Before I came here, I took behind the back.
Oh, okay.
Some rice, cabbage.
Thomas and Suresh.
Suresh?
Yeah.
Come on, get your prasad. We got leche here, look, it's got full of butter.
Later.
No.
Leche. Look at it, it's yellow.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Plenty customers.
I don't think we have so many customers. I'm just gonna take a little of this subject.
Everybody, that's content.
Yeah.
I'll take some notes.
Take it.
This is from God.
This is for
I was actually
Really? Thank you so much for
Ah, we play Jesus now.
Jesus. I see the same.
we do is check about the temple with the whip.
Yeah. Get out of my temple.
I mean,
Who cooked the neck?
For tomorrow.
Put a little salty here.
This is not enough salt. Jaggery. Was it sweet with jaggery?
Yes.
It tastes like jaggery.
Oh, put jaggery in?
This one.
What question is it?
So yesterday was
I put
disappearance or rest?
Oh, you did?
Disappearance, okay. So, how come I don't see
Now, who's been cooking on Wednesdays?
Oh, yes, well, six Swami's yeah, they're on an altar by Prabhupada and Bhakti Siddhanta, but we don't have a big thing of them.
No, it's not a criticism, it's just a...
Oh, Krishna, why aren't they in the pages? Well, the six Swami's were sent to by Lord Chaitanya. So they weren't, my understanding, I don't think they were so much involved in the same The ridicule of them were
I was there in 2005.
my understanding is that they were sent to Vrindavan and then also in Jagan.
Oh, yeah?
They were with Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya went on for 2 or 3 years.
Who's
here? Yeah.
But I don't think so.
I had a lot of fun there. It was just, it was just great. I wasn't planning to go, but a buddy named, now, you know him. He's in Denver now.
And
His, Brahmachari.
For some reason, I have traction for
Sorry? No, it's after the J.
he's like...
Anyway, he somehow, I think he got some money from his mother or something like that. So he asked, would you like to go? Because he was going. It was a year after the installation of the
Rupa is not there.
And there was